Hello friends, this is Hedda. Welcome back to my channel. Many of you have been requesting a full flip through of my reading journal, so that's what we're doing today. In 2023, I used this notebook from Notebook Therapy as my reading journal, and I was very happy with it. If you've been following my reading journal videos throughout the past year, then you will have seen this notebook a lot. And if you want to see me set it up from the beginning, I do have an entire video on that from a little over a year ago, and I'll put a link to that in the description box. But today we're gonna look through it from start to finish and talk a little bit about my reading year. In 2023, I read 43 books and 6 manga volumes. My loose goal for 2023 was to read 40 books, so I'm quite happy with the amount of books that I read. 15 of the books were actually rereads, which is a little bit unusual for me, but they were all comfort reads that I really needed. I did read a ton of really great books in 2023, so let's take a look at my complete 2023 reading journal. Since I have done so many videos about my reading journal, I'm not sure what else I can add to it without sounding very repetitive. But here is my notebook. I removed some pages from the notebook so that it wouldn't get too chunky because my 2022 reading journal just got so enormous. Although I used it for an entire year, it's not super dirty or has any marks or anything. It's pretty nice. The only thing is that it lost one of the bookmarks. That just fell out one day. I'm not sure why, but I still had another bookmark and I really only needed one page marker. I will be going through the pages fairly quickly and not talk too much about each and every one because I did make a full video about setting up my journal. I also did a half-year check-in to talk about my yearly spreads and all of that. So I feel like I've talked about a lot of this in other videos already, but by doing this flip through, we can kind of see the whole journal as a finished project, which I think is really fun. I am really proud of all of the spreads that I made in this journal, all the work I put into this journal. Obviously it's just a hobby, and the only end result is this full journal that I can enjoy flipping through now and then. I have very visual memories, so when I look back at these spreads, I can remember the moments that were happening around the time that I read that book and made that spread, and I think that that's a really beautiful thing. I am the same with songs. As you can see, I had 4 books here on my cover page for January, although one of the books here is actually 3 volumes of a manga, and one of the other ones was a short story. So 2 novels, 1 short story, and 3 manga volumes. Maybe I should have a favorite book of each month. I think out of the 4 that I read in January, my favorite was The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. That was maybe the book that had the most impact on me in January. I really can't pick a favorite book for the entire year, but I will try to pick one for each month. So for February, I read 3 books, and here I think my favorite was A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which is actually a short story. That was my favorite in February. Also, I really loved my February cover page. And then for March, I read only 2 books, and I think my favorite for March was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I am really excited about the continuation of that series because it's a very fun premise, very dark academia, which I like. It's really fun to flip through and see all of these different themes that I did throughout the year. That's kind of my favorite part about my reading journal. For April, I read 3 books. I think my favorite was Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, which was the sequel to Ninth House, but The Direction of the Wind was also really good. I mean, I liked most of the books that I read in 2023, and I do talk about them more in depth in my monthly videos. So if you're interested in hearing me talk about any of the books that you see here, then go check out the monthly videos. In May, I read 3 books. Here, I think my favorite was A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, which was the sequel to the Psalm for the Wild Built that I read earlier. This was also the month where I had the first book that I just didn't quite like, and it was the beginning of a series, The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeko. I just didn't really vibe with it, and I didn't continue reading the other books in the series. Then in June I read 4 books, and here I had many favorites, and it's very hard to choose just one. But I really enjoyed The Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. But if I were to pick a non-fantasy, then I did really enjoy Kim Ji-young, born 1982 as well. It really feels like yesterday when I made all of these spreads and read these books. I can't believe that a whole year has passed. It just doesn't feel right. A year is really not a long time at all. In July, I read 3 books and 3 volumes of manga. So I started reading Rinne, and I still have only read these 3 volumes, but I should really pick that up again because it was really fun. I think my favorite for July was actually Rinne. I really enjoyed the other books as well, but Takahashi just always makes me laugh so much, so that's why I think Rinne is on the top for me in July. I just really needed something fun and lighthearted around this time. Moving on to August, where I read 6 books. So here I started rereading A Court of Thorns and Roses. This was the beginning of my Sarah J. Maas reread marathon that I've been having this fall, or this past half year, I suppose. I also read The Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds, which I really, really enjoyed. It was really refreshing, and it was really fun to go back to the Hunger Games universe. I actually watched all the Hunger Games movies as well around this time. But I think that even though I really enjoyed that, my favorites will still be the ACOTAR books this month. It's hard to pick a favorite ACOTAR books, but I am between Mist and Fury and Wings and Ruin. And then for September, I read 4 books. I only reread books for September, so I read the 2 first Harry Potter books and then the 2 first Throne of Glass books. Here it's very hard for me to pick a favorite because the first Harry Potter books aren't the best, and also I never really quite liked the first 2 Throne of Glass books, so hard to pick a favorite. In October I read 6 books. Here I tried to read some spooky books because it was October, Halloween, all of that. So I think my favorite was probably Slewfoot by Brom. That was my favorite for October. I also really enjoyed Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. That one was also very enjoyable. And then I reread a few other books, and that was pretty much it for October. But I wanted to keep it spooky and witchy and just stick to the theme for that month, although I did end up reading a couple of books that aren't necessarily creepy. And then for November I read 3 books, 2 rereads, and then I read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I think here my favorite was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. It was a reread, but I always really loved the 5th ACOTAR book, so that one will come out on top. And then in December I only read 2 books, Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, and I read these at the same time, so I can't really split them apart, so I'm gonna put them both as a favorite for December. As you can see, I have a few more pages left. I think because I put a lot of my rereads onto half the space that I would have given a new book that I read, and therefore I had more pages left. But ultimately I think that this notebook had the perfect amount of pages after I removed the middle page of all the signatures, so keep that in mind. I would have had more pages left if I hadn't removed those. And now I can get started in my new reading journal, which I made a whole video about if that's something that you're interested in. I'm really excited to get started using it, and so far in January I've only read 1 book, but hopefully there will be a few more before the end of the month so that I have some more spreads to make in my new reading journal. And now I say thank you and goodbye to my 2023 reading journal. Thank you so much for watching this video and for subscribing to my channel. If you watched this video all the way to the end, be sure to put some kind of green emoji in your comment to let me know. Be sure to click the like button before you move on, and let me know in the comments if you had a favorite book from 2023. I hope that you're all having a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!